and hopefully the internet connection. Okay, we are live in the group. So, hi everyone, how are you? We're live in the group, I believe. I'm just going to check to see that we are. Just bear with me 1 second. And where are we? I can't find us. Anyway, I'm just going to check the phone. Oh, we have one viewer. Hello, how are you? I can't see us. Oh, here we are. There we are. Now I can see us. Right. I just need to close. I need to just turn that off so I can see us. Right. Okay. So, good evening, everyone. I know we've got one person with us at the moment. I'm Jackie, if you don't already know me, and I'm Soulscribe Calligraphy. And this is Vincent, and he joined us yesterday for our Twitter hour and shared some really valuable tips with us. And I invited him on today so that we could have a little bit of a summary and maybe go into a little bit more depth about what we spoke about yesterday. So, Vincent, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Well, I'm Vincent Byrne, and I've been working with small businesses for probably 25 years. I was originally an accountant, but I got over that, and and then got into business turnaround consultancy, and then probably the last 12 years I have been working on coaching, because it was easier to work with small businesses that way. They wouldn't necessarily have the money for you to go in and fix the businesses for them, which is what I was doing. So working with business owners. So I describe myself as a coach to business owners, which covers both the personal side and the business side. And yeah, so that's what I do.
Excellent. Excellent. And how are you finding it recently in these unusual times?
Oh, the complete, like clients that I have, I'm obviously continuing to work with. Some of them continue to pay me and some of them don't because of their circumstances, but I still work with them anyway. In terms of new business, everything died, so it hopefully only put on ice, and then it can be resurrected when this is over. But I'm also working on bringing some of my work online, and through creating some short courses, and also providing online coaching. So that's in the mix, and I'm using this time to actually push ahead with that, because I've been dragging my heels for the past 5 or 6 months. It was a very slow process. So it's good.
It's good. It's all good. So that sort of brings us in lovely to the topic we had yesterday, because we're sort of floundering a little bit, I think, at least I am. So, yesterday's topic, making you and your business ready to restart, seemed to be bang on. Well, for me at least anyway, and I think possibly for you as a topic for us to talk about. Yeah, I found it very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think the difficulty with media being pushed in our faces continuously, whether it be online media or the conventional TV and radio, is that we're constantly in this, it's almost like what's going on. And then that's kind of intermingled with not just about what's going on for us here and what's happening here, but then there's the daily entertainment from Mr. Trump, and all of the stuff around that. And then if you didn't have enough there's all the conspiracy theories that are flying around the place as well, as to whether this was all started deliberately or not. And it doesn't really matter what your view is on any of them. Some of them are quite interesting. But I think if you get sucked into all of that, your whole narrative and your whole thought process gets sucked into it as well, which means that where are you in all of this? And I think that's quite interesting. That's okay. I was just hearing myself there.
That's me. I just got my phone put up here so I can see when people are commenting, because I can't actually see you know, where or somebody has, yes, Paula. Hi, Paula. Hi, Melody. They've joined us here now. And Paula has just said, I agree, Jagdeep. Regarding floundering, I find motivation and inspiration in short supply.
And it's as I said, that's understandable with what we're being bombarded with, and because we're giving our attention to that and to when we might get back and how bad is this and is it getting worse, and then all of the tragic stories as well.
Oh my God, yeah.
We're getting lost in that, which is really other people's stuff. So what we have to do in order to take care of ourselves is to bring it back to ourselves. We have to spend time taking care of ourselves, I suppose, and also bring it back to what we can do now for ourselves. Not just in keeping ourselves well, but also in terms of getting ready.
Yeah. So that kind of brings me on to the very sort of first question that we asked you last night, which is, this shutdown has impacted everyone's lives, businesses and incomes. When it finally ends, what do you think it is going to look like?
I have no idea. And that's,
I don't think any of us do
exactly. So that's my point. There's no point speculating. The main thing is it's going to be different. I mean, to be honest, I don't think the government have a clue as to what it's going to look like either. And they're the ones who are going to be telling us when and how we're to go back. So there's nothing you can do about that. It's a little bit like, as I mentioned in the with the tweets last night, it's a bit like weather. You know, you've no control over the weather, but you have control over whether you decide to go out into it. And if you do decide to go out into it, what clothes do you wear? So it's an outside issue, which is outside your control. Therefore, there's no point either getting stressed about it. You know, I know some people do get stressed when it starts raining and they want it to be something else. But as Byron Katie says, the definition of insanity is arguing with what is. And it causes so much problem for people. So it's about just settling and allowing it to be, to say, okay, this is it, and it's uncertain, so let's just accept that. Now what can we do?
I agree. I think acceptance is a big part of this. We just, you know, acceptance will take away a lot of the stress. Melody is our love coach, and she's left a comment here saying, fortunately, I haven't been paying much attention to what is going on. I am working on myself and now moving on to my business, which I think is a really cool approach, you know.
Well, that's exactly what I'm suggesting that people do. So she's ahead of the game with that. It's the only way to be productive, because what's going to happen out there is going to happen. And really the question of you being ready as well as you can for whatever happens. And that's really the key. Because anticipation as to what might happen will drive you mad.
It's like a hidden stress. It's like always bubbling underneath, like what might happen. It's like, you know, creating invisible stresses and, you know, seeing things that aren't actually there for us to you know, touch or see or experience. So I'm going to go on to the next question, because that's, you know, lovely. A great roundup. Thanks, Vincent. So the second question we asked you was, with that in mind, how can we be ready for an eventual return to normality?
Exactly what Melody is doing, which is the two aspects. One is minding your personal well-being, and the second one is, what can you do to get your business ready or better than it currently is? I mean, everybody who is watching this and everyone out there, I could guarantee that I could go into their business and probably pick 5 things that they could be doing better. This even before this particular crisis started. And every business owner knows it too, if they're being really genuinely critical about trying to improve their business. So from a business point of view, it's about taking that critical eye and looking to see what could I have done better? You know, did I have arguments with customers because I didn't specify my terms of business properly? in the past. So here's a good opportunity to specify some new terms and conditions and a new way of engaging with people to make sure I don't have those arguments. So there's always things that you can improve about your business, and it's a question of just looking at that. And the second piece is then your personal well-being, and that's about making sure you're looking after yourself so that you've got structure in your day, that you plan your day the day before, much the same way as a lot of people do when they're working normally. There's no reason why you shouldn't be sitting down at, say, 7 or 8 o'clock at night, whenever you've got a window of 15 or 20 minutes, and just plotting out on a timeline what the hours in the day and how you're going to use them the next day. So at 9 I'm going to do this, at 10 I'm going to do this, and some of them will be tasks and some of them will be routines. So I'm going to do some meditation when I get up in the morning. Then I'm going to work for 2 hours, and this is what I'm going to do. And then at 12 o'clock, I'm going to get up and go for a walk for half an hour. And you set that routine and that schedule for yourself so that it still feels like you're in control.
Yeah, I think routine is really, really important now. You know, even for us, the people that work from home like myself, you know, routine is part and parcel of our normal, you know, we have a normal routine because we already work from home. But even with this, this has changed things quite considerably for me anyway. Like, I have an extra body that would not be here normally, and that kind of disrupted my routine. So trying to find a routine, I think, is really, really important. I just want to talk to you really quickly because, like, when you were talking about timeline, it took me back 7 or 8 years, because that's one of the things we did together, and I found that really, really helpful when we were timelining and, you know, getting on and finding that routine and finding that because that can give you a lot of energy as well. I think so anyway, you know. But I just want to ask you about your daily commitment, Vincent. Do you have a daily commitment?
Yeah, I did a course. One of the things that I was involved in Twitter, that's how we met, whatever it was, 7, 8 years ago. And then I got so overwhelmed with it all that I stayed away from it.
When you say you got over, sorry for interrupting you there, I just want to grab you. When you say when you got overwhelmed with it all, what do you mean? What
I was spending too much time. I was consuming all of the content rather than being a creator of the content. I've only learned that in the last 6 months, that particular phrase. But I was spending too much time engrossed in it, and I didn't really know why I was in it. So after about a year, probably a year after we met or thereabouts, I came off it, and I still had it on my phone, but I would only occasionally check in. And about 15, 18 months ago, when I started to think about how I could move significant aspects of my business online, I said, you know, I'm going to have to do this, kicking and screaming. I'm going to have to do it. So I did a course before Christmas on it, and that was helpful. It wasn't earth-shattering, but it was helpful, and it certainly started to get me into the thought process about how I should approach it again. It wasn't a social media course. It was a how to bring your business online type course. What I found was that when I was trying to start to get a practice going, I found it quite difficult to stick to it. So over Christmas, I came up with the harebrained idea that I would commit to all of the public. Now, there was 40 odd people who had done this course with me, so I was saying it publicly to them, that I was going to do one social media post a day, and I was going to write it fresh every day. So I know has social media people, you know, sort of crying and quaking in their boots, saying you should have it all scheduled and you should have it automatically delivered and all that. But this was as much an exercise in me about writing, about the commitment of writing, as well as publicly putting it up there. So I put it up on Instagram and on Facebook every day, and I'm up to day 100. Today is 107. And it's a piece with a photograph, and it fits on Instagram, but it also goes across to Facebook.
And can people follow? How do people connect with you?
Yeah, well, I mean, my personal Facebook is Vincent Byrne, and I think I'm Vincent Byrne Coach is my kind of business page, and on Instagram I'm Vincent Byrne Coach as well.
Excellent. So that's where you can catch up with your daily run, your daily. What would you call it? I like reading them because they're quite insightful, really, and you're very, very honest. And I think that's what actually makes you quite a good coach as well, because you're not, going, this is how this is how to do it, but you're actually living it yourself. Do you know, that way, like you actually take the steps yourself. And I think that's what makes you a pretty good business coach, and you have a very holistic point of view, which brings me on to another question. Your holistic viewpoint, how come why did you discover that? How did you discover that? What path?
I discovered it when having whatever it was 15 years ago, I was going through a marriage breakup, and I sought out counseling at that time around all of that. And I discovered very quickly in those sessions that I knew very little about myself and about people and about how they operated. And so much of the stuff that I'd been observing and suffering from in my business life, both when I was an employee and when I started to create the business. So I actually have half written a book at this stage called I Knew Nothing Until I Was 40. And it opened my eyes to psychology. And when I came to the end of, I was in the counseling process probably for 2 to 3 years, because I learned a hell of a lot from it. And but it kind of got me to a point where I felt I needed to understand more. So there were a lot of things I'd learned about myself, but I didn't necessarily know why. And there were also things that I needed to fix, and I didn't necessarily see how you could do it within counseling. So that took me purely by fluke down a road of the whole holistic piece. I came across EFT tapping, and I went to the UK and I did some courses in it, and then progressed to become a master in that particular discipline. But then, having found that and the whole energy basis that it works on, I then started looking at Reiki, and I did Brandon Bay's work. I did all kinds of stuff, and it was just opening up a much greater awareness of the fact that we're not just a functioning brain, computer, and a body, but that there's the whole energy system that works with it as well. And that's completely ignored by both conventional medicine, both mentally and physically. So I don't call myself a practitioner. I keep all the accreditations, I do the courses, but I only use it when I think a particular client needs it, and it's a suggestion to them.
Yeah, I was just going to roll on to that as my next question. Melody's saying she's loving this conversation. Thank you, Melody. I'm glad you are.
Okay.
Okay. So bringing, that sort of like naturally was going to bring me into my next question, because one of the things I noticed when we were working together is that you did have a really holistic approach to me, and I'm a very energetic, like I am on the same path you are, and I think we kind of hit the path in our own worlds at the same kind of time. So when we met, it was, if you like, the universe conspiring. But the whole holistic approach, you brought that into your coaching, and rather than business coaches that I have come across, not to say that they're not brilliant at what they do, but they seem to concentrate on the product or the service or the business rather than the people behind the business. And that's where I think it's really important, because without the person there is no business.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why I distinguish. I try to clarify that I'm not a business coach per se. Some people when you put business and coach together, that's what they do. They put the two words together and that's it. I prefer to say I coach the business owner. I actually describe it as I coach enlightened business owners. That is, people who are open to more than just, this is my business, help me fix it. That they actually have to realize that the likelihood is that if there's something wrong in their business, then it's probably something that is in their personal side as well. So it's not that we dive in psychology and everything else. It's just there's an openness and awareness to the fact that I'm working with the person. And then everything else can be learned. I mean, you can learn about marketing, you learn about social media and all of that. I'm fortunate because I ran, when I originally started, I was quite senior in on the financial side in some businesses. And then I also started initially consulting when I started my business, but then I had a software business, which I sold. So I know what it's like to run a conventional business, which a lot of people don't. And that's just
your history is in finance. You're an accountant, wasn't that right?
Yes, I trained as an accountant and I worked specifically in that space for about 10 years after I qualified. So, and then what I found about the profession was that it was quite limited in the way that it wanted to help people with the information that they were producing. So when I originally started on my own, it was helping people interpret financial information and helping business owners, recognize that you didn't have to have anything fancy. The back of a cigarette packet would be enough if you're recording the right information to know how you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So,
So Paula has just also commented saying, me too, just what I needed today. So thank you, Paula. I'm delighted to read that. I'm kind of like, this is the first time we're actually doing this. The first, when we tried it before, it didn't work, but did a bit of research and we've come up with this, and hopefully we can continue doing these. And
it's now a new service. You've just invented a new service.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'll be doing live calligraphy.
Will you ever? Okay, so it brings me on to our third question that we asked you. So I have my checklist. So I have the checklist ready, and and return to a normal sort of plan. What else can I do? I have my checklist. I have to do this. I have to do that. So what else should I be doing?
I suppose what the best way, and one of the areas that I'm also interested in, very heavily interested in, is the mind and how the mind works and how we can train it, hypnosis in particular. And I actually have recently started a podcast with a guy in the US who is a hypnotherapist. And we talk a lot about how you can train your mind to get yourself to behave differently. So that's just an aside. But the point is that you have to have an end goal in sight. So the idea of being ready when you go back is you don't know when it's going to be, but you know how you can be and what way do you want to be set up. So even if it's getting your home office sorted out, is it going to be set up and ready for you to accept clients if that's what you do? Are you going to have documentation ready that will help you engage with people better than it was beforehand, and you just never had time to get it together? So think about how you want to be in that first week, that first month, and imagine it, even write it out and describe it if necessary in a journal.
So like a little bit of visualization almost might help as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you create what you want, if you decide where you want to go on holidays, the likelihood is that you're going to get there. If you just say, I'm going to go on holidays, and you don't make any decision about where you're going, well, you're not going to go there, or you'll end up somewhere you never really wanted to be. So, and this is the problem. We don't take the time to decide what we want. It's conditioned into us that people who say what they want, that's greedy, and it's something that's not encouraged when we're kids. And one of the things I found is that we between the ages of 1 and 7, we are the most impressionable. We absorb the most in. So even things that people say to us in a flippant, past remarkable or otherwise way, we absorb it in and we take it as true because it's coming usually from an adult or someone of authority. So we're all brought up, not to be out there, and not to, little boys or girls should be seen and not heard and all this kind of stuff. And that stuff was pulled in. So that makes it difficult for us to get out there and push ourselves. And that's just programming that we just need to work against. So the idea is that if we decide what we want, then we've got a good chance of getting there. So that's part one, and just knowing how you want it to be when you get back again. But then, as I mentioned earlier, there are things that we know we need to have been doing to improve our businesses. So what are those things? If you were to say, take your business, and I was to say to you, out of 10, how ready or how good is your business just for generally being ready to do business again? Like, if you were to rate where you would like it to be out of 10, what would you pick?
Oh, I'd like it to be a 10 without a shadow of a doubt.
What is it?
Oh, I have to be, okay. Well, I'm actually going to be really honest and say probably around about a 6.5.
Okay,
I'll give myself a 7. I'm going to be kind to myself.
Okay, so the number is not relevant. The next question is the relevant one. It is, what would it need to make it a 10?
Okay. Organization on my behalf.
So what specifically does that mean?
For me, I think it actually comes back to what we were talking about before, which is timelining. I need to put that routine in place, and it's more to do with well-being for myself, because I find with calligraphy, which once I zone in, I'm there and I'm gone for hours. So for me, organization and timelining, I think, would be my personal
Okay, so yeah. So if you then detailed what that specifically would mean for you, then there's your action plan. And now you're working towards bringing it up to a 10. Now, you'll probably find when you get both of those things done that it's still not quite a 10, because it never is. No. But then you ask the question again, where am I now? And what would it need to be in order to be a 10? And if something will come up, and you keep doing it.
Yeah, and this is something that we can all actually do, and it's within our grasp to do, because it's not something out there, out there that you can't reach. It's really, really simple steps that we can take, and it doesn't need to be daunting or overwhelming. So I'm going to ask our fourth question to you, and that's, it's extremely difficult to get motivated in this situation, especially with the confinement and distractions at home. How can I start to put this advice into action?
Well, it's again coming back to what I just started to say, that identifying what it is that you think is required. Now, the place to start initially is to just start writing, because there's no point sitting and pondering, because we don't actually think well when we sit and ponder. The illusion is that we do, but there's only two ways that we think. One is when we're speaking to someone, because what we have to do, we've got this sort of 16-lane highway of all kinds of thoughts going around in our head at the time. I think it's something like 60,000 thoughts a day is the number. God knows how they found that out. But anyway, so you've got all this going on. And when I need to explain something to you, I need to bring it down to one lane out my mouth, so that I can bring a coherent sentence, an explanation to you as to what I'm thinking. As I do that, I'm realizing what I'm saying. So I'm seeing and hearing what I'm saying myself. And that process is thinking. Right. That process is actually creating the thinking process for us. So that's why coaching and counseling is actually so good when it's done properly, whereby you just allow the person to speak about the situation. And if you leave them at it and don't get involved, you don't have to ask them clever things, they will actually drop down and arrive at the conclusion or understanding themselves. It's hugely powerful. So writing is also a similar process, where when you sit down with your pen and you start to actually write, give yourself something like I think give yourself, say, a time limit and write for 20 minutes. Just don't let the pen leave the paper. And you will start off with saying, I don't know what the hell I'm writing here, and it could be a load of rubbish, and then you'll go and you'll keep going because you have to. And all of a sudden, things will start to come up that need to come out. It's almost like unblocking the pipes. And
Excellent.
Then you will start to get more stuff coming out, which if you have set a particular question for yourself, you'll suddenly start to get insights that you need to have around how to deal with that particular issue.
That's fantastic advice. That's fantastic. I'm conscious of the time now because we.
Well, can I just say the second thing very quickly is that is one way. The other way is to buddy up with someone who they may or may not have a similar type of business to you, but get on Skype calls with them and set it up where you say, I'm going to have a session with you and I'm going to talk uninterrupted for 30 minutes about what my challenges are around my business, or this idea that I have, whatever. Will you just give me your attention and your listening and let me do the rest? So literally you would have a scenario where you would get on, you would talk, and if you want the other person to chip in, you can ask them to it, but you don't really want them to. You just want them to give their attention and to support you in that way. And you can rant for half an hour, or you may come up with something very constructive very quickly. And then when you're finished, they do the same. That process in itself is hugely beneficial from as I said, clearing the stress point of view, but also in generation of ideas. And you can use it as well as an additional piece to help each other with creating your list or creating your plan. And when it comes to executing on it, you can hold each other accountable to doing the things on the list and in the plan. So that you have someone pushing you and helping you and encouraging you, because we all have the days when we don't want to do it.
That's very, very true. Somebody's phone is ringing.
It's the doorbell.
The doorbell. Okay, David Macaulay's just joined us. Hi, David. How are you? So we've got another viewer. Brilliant. Okay.
We'll be busting the ratings at this stage.
So let me ask you now, I brought you back kicking and screaming to Twitter because we originally met on Twitter, and obviously we've become friends since, but I brought you back kicking and screaming. Can you just give us a quick 30 seconds? What did you think? Did you enjoy it? Did you find it
I put it this way: I was glad I did it, but while I was doing it, I wasn't enjoying it because I was I was going back to something where I was vaguely familiar, and I was trying to remember what I needed to do in order to keep on top of it. So whereas with something like this, I could do this all day, and and it can be recorded and be put up there, and people can look at it. So as I said, I was glad I did it. I'm not sure that, and I'd do it again, but I'm not sure that I would use the same technique, say, for if I was hosting it and wanting to share information with people. I just didn't quite see how that would fit together properly for me. So that was it. And it's got me back to Twitter. I'll certainly keep going on it. And I'll share my daily updates through it as well. And see what happens. See what happens from there.
Yeah, you got a crash course yesterday, 5 minutes.
Crash is the word. Crash is the word.
It was a bit of fun anyway. You're still laughing.
Yeah. At my end, it was a car crash. Yeah.
You were brilliant. Okay, guys. Vincent has. Sorry, let me start again because. So anyway, we'll draw this to a close and say thank you very much, Vincent, for joining us. I really enjoyed that. It was my first ever interview. I hope you did too. No No better person. So listen, you can catch up with Vincent on his website, which is
vincentbyrne.ie. I'm just actually I'm working on it at the moment, so God knows what you'll meet when you actually go into it, because it might be under construction or something like that. But I'm working on it.
Okay.
And then on Facebook and Instagram, I'm Vincent Byrne Coach, and on Twitter I'm just Vincent Byrne apparently, and on LinkedIn I'm Vincent Byrne Coach as well. And finally, if you're interested in the podcast, it's on Apple Podcasts and it's called Your Mind is Trying to Kill You.
Yes, I've actually listened to that, and I think it's really, really good, really good. Paula has just put up a comment. She says, I'm just getting into Twitter, mostly through posting about hashtag 100 days of walking. Haven't done much work on it. Well, we can go into Twitter if you like, Paula. At another interview, maybe I can get Sam on or something.
Get someone who knows what they're talking about.
Rather than me.
No, you do.
Okay, listen, thank you so much, Vincent. Really, really appreciate your time. I do hope you enjoyed the experience.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Good, and I hope that you get some traction and traffic too. And you know, I found yesterday really great. You were so open with all of your advice and knowledge. And for me personally, it's kind of reminded me of a few things that I could do to improve things for myself. And, you know, so if you guys want to check out our blog on irishWeddingChat.com, please do. And you will see a summary of yesterday's Twitter chat with Vincent. So thank you very much. And on that note, I'm going to say good night.
Thanks a million. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.